I'm Conrad Wetzel, and sitting down with us today is Dawn Blackman. Dawn lives in Champaign and works with the Church of the Brethren on North Neal Street. And she's involved in a wide variety of quite interesting things that she's going to be telling us about today. So we're very happy to have you here with us today, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, good. Dawn, first of all, I want to have you say something about yourself. How long have you been involved in the Church of the Brethren there?
Well, I've been there about 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how long have you lived in Champaign?
Oh, I came in 1993, April of 1993.
Mm-hmm. So you've been there a while. Where did you come from?
Oh, I came from a south suburb of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I had been running my business as a home-based business full-time, and I wanted to do a retail shop, and prices and rents in Chicago are a lot higher than they were in Champaign.
We're a little different from Chicago, aren't we? Now, what kind of a business was that?
Well, I had a store that sold items from Africa as well as other cultures, and then I did custom sewing.
I see, yes. Is that work you enjoyed?
Oh, I love to sew. And I like working with other cultures, the artifacts and the traditions, so it was a perfect job for me.
And you've made sure that you know quite a bit about the various cultures, and that's good.
Well, I was a military wife for just short of 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I went on every assignment, even the temporary ones. So in that way, I was able to experience a variety of cultures.
Mm.
And because there generally are not jobs for enlisted wives in foreign countries, I did apprenticeships with native craftspeople so that I could learn their traditions that way.
That gave you an opportunity to learn a lot about the way they make their materials, the way they color them, the way they dye them, and all those things.
And because their crafts are so wrapped up in the way they live, it let me have a window in on their culture as well.
Very good. Now you have a peace pole in front of the Church of the Brethren there on North Neal Street. Tell me something about what is a peace pole?
Well, we have two actually. It's a four-sided pole, and on each side, in a different language, it says, "Let peace prevail." So it's a prayer that peace will prevail in not just our culture, but all over the world. We have it in, I think, 8 different languages, 7 different languages, because English is on each pole. So.
Very good. You know, it's people as they drive by can't read it, but if they walk by, they can read it.
They can read it. They sure
Yes.
can. And they can also see our banner, which says, "Peace and social justice practiced here. Love, mercy, do justice, walk humbly before God." That's a Micah scripture that we really base our relationships and our outreach to the community on.
And that passage in Micah sort of sums it up, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes.
It does. And you can't put a banner up out front for everybody to see like that and not do what it says.
Yeah, that's true. We have to be ready to back up what we say, don't we? Now, one thing that you do there that I found quite interesting is the way you work with children in various ways. For instance, you have a club with them. Tell us about that. What do you call that club?
We call it Culture Club, and it's a children's peace ministry that addresses not only peace, but things that children need. We do life skills training and homework assistance and provide them opportunities to experience, for new experiences. They always have a garden every summer. Just things that I did as a child, and you did as a child. And play games that you don't have to have a screen to play, you know, that you have to actually talk to the person that you're playing with. So.
Now, you mentioned learning job skills. What kinds of opportunities does that involve for a child? What can they do?
Well, every summer the children have a garden plot.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an opportunity to volunteer in the communal plot, which is the plot that we use the vegetables to fill out the baskets that we deliver from the church pantry to community members who are at risk for hunger, and also to deliver to senior citizens in the Senior Citizens Washington Square building. So, but the children have their own personal plots, and they grow vegetables in there, and they can take them home. But you know how sometimes you have way more tomatoes than you can eat at home. We provide through the business Fresh Market, the fish market, which is there on Randolph. They let us set up in their front yard on Saturdays once the produce starts to come in the garden. So the children are able to sell their surplus. So they get to use their math skills in the summertime, and they learn customer service, and it's an opportunity for them to learn as young people some of the things that will stay with them into adulthood.
That sounds like a real rich opportunity for children. So oftentimes during the summer when school's out, all they do is just kind of play around out on the street or fight out on the street, things like that. But this engages them in a learning way.
And then we have opportunities for them to use other skills that they learn in school so that they can make that connection between what they're learning in school and what they're going to need in the marketplace or in life. So we have a writing program where the children write poems, they write poetry, and we publish a little book for them with their poems in it. And that way they can see their work in print, and it encourages them to do more.
Has a book been published of their poems, or will be?
We've done a paperback version, compiled ourselves, but we're going to publish a paperback bound, the perfect print version. It'll look just like a real paperback book, and so the children will have a copy for themselves, and then maybe we can even sell some for a fundraiser for our field trips.
What's going to be the title of this book?
Children Speak of Peace. So every year I keep compiling more poems from children. I do workshops in libraries and schools and just about any organization that wants to have their children's poetry in the book. I'll go out and I'll do a workshop and we'll collect the poems. And so the book keeps growing, which is good. I wanted to, there's a certain number of pages you have to pay for anyway, and I'd just as soon have them be filled with children's work than empty in the back,
When do you expect this book to be ready?
Well, I have to have a firm closing date of the Friday of spring break. So, because during spring break we'll do our last workshop, and then I have to finish auditing. I'm the editor, so I'm the one that has to go through and do all of the spelling corrections and.
Tell us something about some of the poems. I'd be interested to hear that.
Well, the children use words and to express the theme that they understand, and so it's not surprising that they should use. Fourth graders are learning about synonyms. So I had one young woman. They also did the Peace Banner workshop, and since the themes were the same, we saw some of the same copy. But one young woman made a banner that said, "Make me a piece of the peace."
That's an interesting play on words, a piece of the peace.
Of the peace. I mean, even a child knows that no one person can bring about peace. That's going to take all of us. And so those were on her words on her spelling list. So.
And that poem captures the way in which two words can sound alike but are spelled differently. So there's a learning there as well as a creative process. Now, what's the involvement of the parents whose children do you engage with them at any time?
We do. Some of the parents come and volunteer in the program. When we do soup making, the children are being taught to give back to their community as well as just participating in the program. So on Thursdays, we get together and we make soup for the Time Center.
Oh, is that right? Yes.
And
tell what the Time Center is.
Well, the Time Center is the shelter for homeless men in Champaign. It's a re-entry program.
So the children, while making that soup, know that they're serving people who otherwise would go hungry and without a home?
Well, they know that they're helping people who are having a hard time right now. And so it's really kind of become important to them to top their soup making every year. Soup making is one of the service projects that we provide at the Dr. King Day celebration for children, because Dr. King's Day shouldn't be a day off. It's a day on, and it's a day on to benefit the community. But so many of the opportunities are for adults. So we specialize in the children, and we provide opportunities for them to have a day of volunteer work to benefit the community. And each year we try to top the previous year's soup making. This year we had some students from the U of I come, and so they made soup as well.
Is that right? Yes.
And we made soup, and they portioned 50-pound sacks of beans and 40-pound bags of candy into smaller bags, so that, you know, when we have a food basket to fill, then we just have to move packages and not scoop. So.
And that's good learning for even university students. It's not just children who are still learning, but they're learning something about what it means to give of yourself to others. Isn't that right?
Yes.
About how many students come at any given time?
Oh, there were, you know, we've had as many as 22 at one time.
How did they learn about your program?
Well, the Office of Volunteers on the campus has a registry, and there's also I Help every year in October. And so the group that was with us that particular day is a service fraternity, Alpha Pi Omega, and they came to volunteer in the garden on I Help Day, and they've been back 4 times
Is
since.
that right?
Yes. I think they like us.
Well, it gives them a chance to learn what it means to give of yourself to others, isn't that right?
They're a great group of young people.
Yeah.
And some of them were talented cooks already. This year we had the most beautiful soups. I mean, there was a corn chowder that was just gorgeous. and so we made 8 that day, and then we continued through the week, and altogether we made 11. But we were a little bit short of last year. Last year we made 16. So, but we did more packaging this year than we did last year. So.
Now, you mentioned Martin Luther King Day. Tell us a little about everybody knows about Martin Luther King, but why don't you say something about it and the way in which that's a good model for children?
Well, I think it's an excellent model for children because first they're out of school. And for children, most of the time when they are out of school, they don't even know why. You know, they say, there's no school tomorrow, Miss Dawn. Why? I don't know. They told me not to come. I'm not going. You know? So the first part is for them to recognize that here is a national celebration for Dr. Martin Luther King, and why, and how they can contribute to it. How they, even as children, can be contributors to their community, not just on the Reverend Dr. King's birthday, but all through the year. Yeah. And they really, especially the children who come on a regular basis, they feel like we're having this Peace Banner workshop to celebrate Dr. King's life and legacy. It's in their house. And so they want to be part of the directing of things. And they go, what are we going to be in charge of, Ms. Dawn? Yeah. Okay, so we're training the next generation of volunteers, because volunteers aren't born, they're trained.
That is true.
You know, children who grow up volunteering and having the heart for others into adulthood, they carry that. And if you train a child in the way that he should go, when he is old, he will not depart from it.
So learning about that legacy and then taking that as an example for their lives is one of the main features of your celebrating that day with the children.
It is. We had Dr. King's speeches playing on numerous computers so that they could listen to the speeches and draw for it, because they could also make a banner on the theme of one of Dr. King's speeches, and as well as a peace banner. So,
has this ever gotten any public publicity here in town?
Oh yeah, the News Gazette has been very, very good to us. They've come out a number of years and taken photographs. They were out this year, and Channel 15 came out.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's very good. Well, we hope that our conversation today is one part of the way people can learn about
Sure.
what
We
you
do it
there.
every year on the Monday of the celebration of Dr. King's birthday.
Now, you mentioned that you make soup. How do they know how to make soup? Do they do it at home, or you teach them?
Well, some of them cook a little bit at home, but mostly we're learning.
Yes.
Because we make the kind of soup that you make that my mother used to call icebox soup. In the summertime, we use garden vegetables. So whatever is the most prevalent, we make that kind of soup.
Yeah.
Lots of tomato soup, and every soup almost has tomato in it.
Yes.
But so we are using the things from the garden to make soup, and in the wintertime, we sometimes have to use canned, or we're able to get fresh vegetables from Eastern Illinois Food Bank. And there's a site online. You put in what you have, and it gives you a recipe.
Okay.
So sometimes we do it that way. Sometimes we wing it.
And the children, they can learn something about how to use a computer to learn something, can't they?
They learn that we use the
that's
computer. They learn
applicable.
to read a recipe.
Yeah.
They learn to measure properly. They learn about sanitation. They know, you know, they watch one another. You got to go wash your hands. You sneezed.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
Now tell me something about how the schools look on your program. You know, here you have the children that then go back to their schools, their teachers. What do they know about your program?
Well, most of the students who are participating, their teachers know that they're in an after-school program where they get help with their homework. There are students who come from U of I again who help with the tutoring. And I sometimes have been able to sit in with parent-teacher conferences, and that helps, because the children who come, one particular conference, I remember the children, one of the young men was never having homework, and when we opened his desk at parent-teacher conference, we understood why he never had homework. He had homework, he just didn't have it with him, because it was all in his desk. So he got busted, as he said.
Yeah, he got busted. Yes. Well, you have an important role of being a bridge between the parent and the child in those situations.
Well, you know, parents, as I said, I've had parents who come and volunteer in the program. They come and help make the soup on
Yeah.
Thursday, or one young woman is going to, she wants to be the person who does our clothing pantry there at the church. So I said, you know, this, if we set it up like a boutique, then you could practice, and this would give you some skills and some experience in a boutique. So she's going to be our boutique manager.
It's very good. Now, in what ways does all of this practical work express anything about the Church of the Brethren that you're in there?
Well, we try to be the hands and the feet of Jesus. And when I read the Bible, I see that the people that Jesus was frequently around needed help. Sometimes they needed food, sometimes they needed clothes, sometimes they needed healing. And so we try to do as Jesus did, not just wonder what he would do. Because the Bible doesn't keep any secrets. Jesus fed hungry people.
Yeah.
He healed sick people. He comforted people. And so we use these programs as a way of doing that. People who are in danger of hunger, you know, that's their primary focus. And if you alleviate that problem and help them to learn, you know, the garden helps them to learn how to fill those needs right there in the community where there's really no grocery stores, so they can grow things to eat and that are healthy.
Yes.
And that they have control over. And I think that that's one of the things that Jesus would have us do.
It's a very practical application of the things that are being taught.
Oh yeah. I remember being a child and wondering why I was learning this, why I needed to know this. I still have the same concerns about calculus. But as an adult, I know I use the skills that I learned from my parents and from the nuns over and over again. But children don't always see that far in the future. Well, after they spent a couple of Saturdays in the garden market, and they've had to calculate their sales commission, and if they don't get it right, it goes in the kitty for popsicles. So they understand why it's important to know percentages and know how to calculate them. So
Because they have their consequences of their acts become very evident to them.
natural consequences. That's the best teacher in the world.
Yes. Now, you mentioned that you were quoting from the book of Micah when we started. Again, what was that? Say it again. And how would you say that applies in how you're applying it?
Love mercy, do justice, walk humbly before God.
So in very, very practical ways, you're helping the children learn those principles, whether they go to church or not, whether the family...
The program is not limited to children who come to church at
Yes.
Church of the Brethren. Many of them do not come to church. Some of them are starting to show up. But when the church started this ministry, we didn't have any children in the congregation. So it was an outreach to the neighborhood children.
And they can see that these things are very practical. They are life skills that they're developing. It's not just some idea. It's a
Right.
set of actions.
Sure.
There's a great writer who said, love is work made visible. No, it's the other way around. Work is love made visible. And you're helping these children make love visible. And other people can see it, and I imagine there are other children who say, hey, I'd like to be a part of that program.
Well, we started off with a boys baking program on Friday. 5 boys who came to learn to bake on Fridays. Then some of their cousins and sisters and a couple of the neighborhood girls came. Well, the boys chose a name, their names YBs, Young Bakers, and the girls are the Fabulous Baker Girls. So word gets out that, oh, right, Friday, what are we baking today? That's usually the day more show up.
Now, can they take that home and their
Oh,
family
they do. They
gets to
take
eat
it home.
Then?
We taste it,
Yeah.
see if people followed the recipe correctly and if they had a successful baking experience, but they take it home.
Dawn, it's really been a pleasure to sit down with you
Thank
today.
you so much for having me, Conrad.
Of course. And I think that the viewing audience will not only learn from this, but they'll also just get a good feeling from the kind of things you're doing. And you're always, they're welcome to stop by and see what's going on.
Oh, yeah. And we're doing, let's see, our next project would be during spring break. We have a full-day program during spring break. And it's drop-in. Children can take 1 class or half a day, full day.
Now, where is it located again?
We're at Champaign Church of the Brethren, which is at 1210 North Neal Street.
Very good. Well, Dawn, thank you for coming. And you've really shared a lot that I think people are going to enjoy hearing about.
Well, thank you again for having me.
Take good care.
Okay.